Baelor fought for me. He gave his fucking life.
Your prince fought for you against men sworn to protect him. He risked nothing.
You had in him to be a great king. Why would the gods take him and leave you?
I've wondered the same.
There's a war coming. We could be a force, you and I.
Sir Duncan, Prince Maekar demands a word.
My youngest son seems to have grown fond of you, sir. It is time he was a squire. But he tells me he will serve no knight but you.
Will you have him? Beg your pardon, Lord. But I think I'm done with princes.
Maybe you're not the knight I thought you were.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This will be my Game of Thrones Night of the Seven Kingdoms Episode 6 finale trailer video. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs and references here, stuff they have to wrap up for Season 1 and set up what's happening during Season 2, which they're in the middle of filming right now. So we'll break it all down. Based on the footage, it seems like they're keeping with the Game of Thrones long-standing tradition of the penultimate episode being the big WTF battle episode, and the actual finales just being the aftermath of that. They continued in House of the Dragon, and obviously now with Night of the Seven Kingdoms. The actual episode is titled The Morrow, and the idea is on the morrow, he is going to eventually leave now. Not really sure exactly what he's going to do, because originally he thought that he was going to become a knight for Baelor. Eventually that would have made him part of the Kingsguard, because everyone expected Baelor to inherit the Iron Throne and become king eventually. So at least at the beginning of the episode, Dunk is still trying to figure out what he's going to do, and as he says in the trailer to Maekar, he's kind of given up on serving princes. He's not so hot on Targaryens or the royal family right now. There are a couple other notable things in the background here too. While you see Lionel Baratheon talking to him about teaming up and a possible rebellion, lots of Robert's Rebellion going on in the background here, lots of vibes. Lionel Baratheon has his own small rebellion before the full-blown Robert's Rebellion. We'll get to that in a second. But notice at Dunk's campsite is he's sort of licking his wounds, trying to heal from the actual fight, which just happened, like just a little bit of time has gone by on the morrow. It's like the morning after the actual trial. Zoom and enhance, you can actually see his broken shield right next to him on the ground. So you remember, during the actual trial of 7, he almost immediately cast it aside because Aerion's lance just broke right through it, like it did nothing to stop the lance. But because this is his personal coat of arms, it is precious to him. Eventually, it will get repaired, and he will continue using the shield in the sigil. But the bigger moment here is Lionel Baratheon showing how much he dislikes the Targaryens, and it seems like he's trying to talk Dunk into becoming his knight. Come serve me at Storm's End. We could be a team together. There's a war coming.
There's a war coming. We could be a force, you and I.
During the tournament, he did become friends with Lionel, so Lionel does think of him as a good friend. They become even better friends later in the timeline too, so like this relationship continues as bros. But when he says there's a war that's coming, that's a reference to a number of different things. In the shorter term, it's a reference to the Second Blackfyre Rebellion, because Aegor Rivers will come back with the Golden Company very soon after this. There was also a reference to that during Episode 5 in the flashbacks, when his friend Rafe was trying to tell him that just because Daemon Blackfyre I, the leader of the Blackfyre Rebellion, was dead, didn't mean that it was over and done. The Blackfyres would eventually come back to try again, and that is Aegor Rivers, basically. We will probably see a version of that during Season 3, so like we'll actually get to see some Blackfyre Rebellion in the background, but because the show's budget is so small, they actually talked about this during the Trial of 7 when they were filming it. It's the reason why you didn't see a traditional type of big battle with all the different groups fighting at the same time. You spent most of the time in Dunk's perspective, and you just saw the other people fighting in the periphery, like a lot of drive-bys happening in the middle of Dunk's perspective. Not because they didn't want to actually show you the big fights happening between all the other combatants, mostly because of budget. But another reference, war that is coming, with Lionel Baratheon involved, is that he has a short-lived rebellion against Egg himself once Egg becomes king and is crowned Aegon V, but that's not for over 20 years, and it's not even right away when Egg becomes king. It's a couple years after, and it's because one of Egg's sons, Duncan, named Duncan the Small, he's named after Duncan the Tall, like he names him after his best friend, basically. Egg had betrothed with Lionel Baratheon's daughter, so his daughter was going to become the next queen. Duncan the Small then falls in love with Jenny of Oldstones. Yes, that Jenny of Oldstones. There's a song that's sung about them. They actually used it during the original Game of Thrones series. Egg's son, Duncan the Small, breaks the engagement so that he can be with Jenny of Oldstones. Lionel Baratheon is really, really pissed off, has his small rebellion, but then Egg smooths it over, like they fix the problem between them, but it's not completely healing the wound, because eventually then later in the timeline, you have the full-blown Robert's Rebellion, which is also like a sly reference here too, like they're just trying to remind you, oh, by the way, Robert Baratheon is coming along later in the timeline, and there will be a much bigger war against the Targaryens.
You helped me win the Iron Throne, now help me keep the damn thing.
Just to explain the relationship between Lionel Baratheon and Robert Baratheon. So you have to remember that we're way, way earlier in the timeline here, and George R. R. Martin only wrote that Lionel had a daughter. He never said if he had an actual son, but the next heir to Storm's End after Lionel Baratheon becomes Ormund Baratheon, so we don't know if he's going to be his secret son or a cousin or a nephew or something like that. But we do know that Ormund Baratheon is the grandfather of Robert Baratheon, making Lionel Baratheon either his great-grandfather or his great-grand-uncle or great-cousin. But it has been very clear during the tournament here that Lionel Baratheon does not like the Targaryens and really loved sticking it to them and making them seem like fools in front of the entire realm here. So even though he probably does feel bad that Baelor Targaryen died, he is happy with the Targaryens getting their asses handed to them, respectively, because the whole reason why the Targaryen family even came to the tournament was as part of a diplomatic mission, which has now gone completely off the rails. Could not have ended worse for them, like the worst possible things just happened. I don't totally believe the sentiment here that Baelor didn't sacrifice anything or take any chances when he was defending Dunk, as Lionel says here. Now, he isn't totally wrong, though, because, like Baelor said when they were planning the actual fight, the Kingsguard are forbidden to actually attack me, so I'll go after them. And then they actually asked in the huddle there, is that an honorable thing to do? And he said, we'll leave it to the gods to figure out. So it was the show's way of acknowledging the gray area that they were in terms of morality and whether or not it was honorable. They cross-cut a conversation that Dunk is having with Valarr where he's trying to remember his father and just questioning the logic of it all, like, why would the gods take him and not you? And Dunk is like, I also wonder the same thing, like, how could I live and he died? He references how Baelor had it in him to be a great king. Most people in the realm also believe that too, so it is a massive, massive loss for the realm in general, not just for the Targaryen family. We get a couple scenes from his actual funeral pyre here. It's the Kingsguard, the black regular castle guard that they brought with them, Maekar and Egg. The reason why Aerion isn't here is because he's in bed recuperating from the actual fight. I think this old man with the white hair standing next to Maekar is just the Septon. I don't think this is actually a member of the Targaryen family. Maekar and Baelor's father, King Daeron II, is in his 50s, so like he's not this old, and he wasn't here in the tourney of Ashford for the actual funeral. Like he didn't come down from King's Landing. They've only sent a Raven, because remember, this is literally the morning right after the Trial of Seven, so there's no way that Daeron could have even made it here, even if he took off at full speed. Behind the fire, much closer, there's Valarr with his wife and a couple of the other wives that came to the tournament with the Targaryens who are here. I can't quite make out behind the flames if Daeron is here, but he also might be recuperating from the trial too. But he mostly just fell down. That was really all he did during the actual fight, which he told Dunk, don't worry, I'm not going to be a threat, I'm terrible at this. You also notice that Maekar is telling Egg to wear a bald cap, like please, put a cap on top of your head. The whole reason why they're burning Baelor's body here, why they're cremating, having the ceremony at Ashford instead of bringing the body back to King's Landing, is because it's part of the Targaryen tradition. If they still had dragons during this part of the timeline, they would have had a dragon burn the body, which we saw during House of the Dragon Episode 1 when Rhaenyra's mother died. One of the other cool details when you get the close-up shot of Valarr is you notice that he has heterochromia, so he has two different colors of eyes. What they actually did is because the actor who plays Valarr actually has that condition, is that when they cast Bertie Carvel, is that they use some contacts to also give him heterochromia. He doesn't have it naturally, so that they just look more like father and son, like he passed the condition to his son. Then in the aftermath, after the funeral, as Dunk is walking around all the tents, people are like slowly breaking down the actual tournament. The tournament itself was over with the Trial of Seven, like that basically shut the tournament down. You see the regular Targaryen guards call him to come see Maekar, who wants to talk to him about taking Aegon as his squire permanently. There's a real quick flash of Egg going to see Aerion, who's recuperating in his bed here. This is Aerion here in the background if you couldn't tell. He is still very much alive, and he can still technically father children because one of his children is eventually named Maegor later in the timeline, like much later in the timeline. You also notice that Egg has the knife on him, so he's thinking about paying Aerion back for the reference earlier where he said that when he was younger, Aerion would sneak into his room and threaten to cut off his balls and make him a woman and then marry him because Targaryen's marrying in the family, brother marrying sister. So part of the idea is that Egg is thinking about killing Aerion, mostly for revenge purposes though, like all these things are your fault. The reason why things went so badly is because of what you did. We will see what winds up being the thing to eventually stay his hand. We get a brief scene of Dunk reuniting with Raymond Fossaway, who is now a knight, and you also notice during the tournament, like it was a real quick blink and you miss it kind of shot, but he had the green apple sigil on his shield. They'll actually deal with that during this episode, where one of the other beneficial things to come out from the tournament is that they let him create the green apple branch of the Fossaway family, so it's how you get to the red apple and the green apple branches of the family. We get the scene of Maekar talking to Dunk about taking Aegon as his squire permanently. This is the same room, same type of configuration, same vibe when he was talking to Baelor after he came out of the cell, thinking that he was going to be executed for striking Aerion. How things have changed for all of them in the last couple days. It was literally just like a day ago that happened. That's how much time has gone by. It's only been a couple days since the beginning of the tournament.
Will you have it? Beg your pardon, Lord. I think I'm done with princes.
All of his dialogue here during this scene here, when he says, "My son will have no other," is right out of the books, too. Like, this is basically just a carbon copy speech directly from the books, like they've done a lot of times during the series. It looks like Egg is also eavesdropping on them because he wants to become Dunk's knight, and he just wants to know what's going to happen after this because of Baelor's death, because things went so badly. But one of the reasons why Dunk says that he's done with princes, or he thinks he's done with princes, is because when Maekar first asks him to take Aegon, like it's time for him to become a squire, please come to Summerhall. So the idea is that Maekar wants Dunk to become his knight at Summerhall only, and he will just keep Egg right next to him where he can watch him all the time at Summerhall. But because of everything that's happened to him at the tournament here, everything that's gone wrong, Dunk wants nothing to do with the Targaryens just in general. Like, he wants to stay as far away from them as possible, which is why he says no, at least at first, or he makes it seem like he tells Maekar no. This is not the end of it, though. There are 2 more books that George R. Martin has published in the Tales of Duncan, so obviously you know how this is going to end up. And there are 10 more unpublished stories that he also gave to Ira Parker that they'll use for later seasons like Season 4, Season 5, and beyond. But at least the way they cut the trailer, they want to make you wonder what's going to bring them back together, like what will make Dunk agree to take Aegon. Because I believe this scene of Dunk at the campsite here is him packing up, getting ready to ride out of Ashford permanently, and you see Egg join him here, and he's wearing completely different clothes. They're meant to be riding clothes for the road. Notice he is no longer wearing Targaryen colors either. There's an important reason for that we'll wait till the episode to actually talk about. Like, we don't need to completely talk about. The story is out there, so you can actually go read the way that this ends up if you don't want to wait for next week, though. Probably the other biggest thing here during their conversation, the scenes of Maekar and Dunk, is you see how broken up Maekar is over Baelor's death, how it's affected him so much. So the actors, both Bertie Carvel and the actor who plays Maekar, talked about how this all went down and how Maekar feels about what he's done and how Baelor possibly also feels about what Maekar has done too. The actor who plays Maekar said that they actually filmed a couple different versions of the scene of the actual fight with different versions of culpability because people always ask, did Maekar mean to kill Baelor or was it purely an accident? So the actor is saying that they actually filmed it both different ways to make it seem more like he did it on purpose and then another way to make it seem like it was more of an accident. We will see which version they wind up using in the actual episode. The books make it seem like it's more of a tragic accident. He actually said there's that kind of deep desire to be the number one in Maekar that might be realized by the death of his brother. That's actually not completely correct because you remember that Maekar is the 4th son of King Daeron II. There are 2 other older brothers than him after Baelor, and technically, in the realm, after Aegon III, they pass male primogeniture, so only the male heirs can inherit, and it actually starts with the oldest male heir's line, meaning that Valarr is actually the next heir after Baelor dies.
Cousin?
The only exception to this is Dorne, who practices absolute primogeniture, so in their case, it's the oldest living person in the family that's the next to inherit the Dornish throne, and it can also be a woman in their case. So remember, Baelor had 2 sons. Valarr, who's at the tournament here, we get all the scenes with, he's now the heir. He has a younger brother named Matares, so he becomes the heir if something happened to Valarr. If something happened to both of Baelor's sons, the line would jump to Baelor's younger brother Aerys the First, who has no children. Then if something happened to him, the line would jump to Rhaegal, his next younger brother, who has 3 daughters. But because of the law they passed with Aegon III, who, when he became king, only male heirs can inherit, the line would automatically then jump to Maekar the First. So a lot of other people now have to die before Maekar becomes king. So part of the idea is that Aeg, who eventually does become Aegon V and the next king much later in the timeline, like more than 20 years later in the timeline, you remember he is the 4th son of a 4th son. That's how far down in the line of succession he is right now, which is why they call him Aegon the Unlikely. Nobody ever thought that he would become king. Just so many weird and bad circumstances, things happen to the Targaryen family over the next 20 years to cause him to become king. So if you think that Baelor dying at the tournament here and the Targaryens falling flat on their face and embarrassing the family in front of the realm is a really bad thing, things only get worse for the Targaryen family after this. We'll actually get into this a little bit more when we start talking about Season 2 and we get those episodes, because there's a little bit of a time jump when Season 2 picks up, and the next year after the tournament is the Great Spring Sickness, which basically wipes out a ton of people in the realm. Then we get a real brief scene after he's talked to Maekar where Aeg is like, maybe you're not the knight that I thought you were, because he thinks that Dunk is going to deny him and he's just going to go off on his own, like he'll never see Dunk again. But obviously we know, because there's 3 books and 10 unpublished stories, that this is not the end of their relationship. Everybody post all your reactions in the comments below and your theories for the finale. There's a lot to unpack here, so if you did spot any Easter eggs or references that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments too. There is still a lot of stuff that they did not put in the trailer that we'll have to talk about during the actual episode. My full episode 6 video will post next Sunday after they release it, so be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss that. And I'll start doing Season 2 videos after the actual finale, and hopefully HBO will also drop a much bigger version of the official House of the Dragon Season 3 trailer. We've gotten a couple smaller trailers. I've already done a video for that, so I'll link it at the end of this too. Everybody click here for my full episode 6 finale video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that, and click here for all my other Night of the Seven Kingdoms episodes. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.